Whatever you might have heard about them, the truth is that few professions are more shrouded in mystery and misunderstood than the Japanese geisha. There's much to uncover about this profession and the women who practiced it. So, in today's video, we shall reveal the truth about the complicated and strange lives the geisha lived. Geisha means artist or person of the arts. It refers to a group of professionals whose job was to entertain clients through the arts, like the modern-day Beyoncé. The art existed as early as 7th century Japan, although it was not until the 17th century that the first modern geisha started appearing in the big cities, and they were men. The men, called Taikomochi, performed roles similar to that of a court jester. But soon, perhaps because all the wars men had to fight, women started taking over the profession. Or maybe they were just better at it. Geisha were experts in music, dancing, and playing instruments like the shamisen. Their original role was playing assistance to oirons, high-class courtesans you could quickly identify by their flashy kimonos and elaborate hairstyles. The oirons lived in the pleasure quarters of Edo, now known as Tokyo, and also Kyoto, as well as other big cities with red light districts. The geisha had to entertain the oirons' wealthy and influential clientele with music, elegant dancing, and witty conversation. But as time went on, the geisha grew in popularity, and the oiron courtesans they worked for did not enjoy the geisha's new fame. They grew so bitter that they complained to the government that the geisha stole their customers. To satisfy both sides, the government passed a law forbidding the geisha from participating in prostitution. If they did so, they could risk losing their entertainment license. On the other hand, the oiron could work as courtesans, but were not to entertain in any form. So, ironically, the original geisha were not legally allowed to be sex workers. As the Second World War wrapped up and America resumed occupation of Japan, the worn-out and exhausted American soldiers had an itch. They would pay any amount of money to solve it. They wanted geisha girls, and in their drunken and fatigued state, they chanted the request out into the night air, mispronouncing the word geisha. The war had left many Japanese women in need of jobs to sustain themselves, and some women had realized that there was a huge need for sex workers to cater to the needs of the American soldiers. So they started selling their bodies to them and calling themselves geisha girls. They dressed like the real geisha, with beautiful dresses, hairdos, red lip dye, and white face paint, and they also entertained customers. The only difference between them being that they attended to their customers in the bedroom. So naturally, the American soldiers, who knew nothing about what it meant to be a geisha, began associating the term with sex workers. Unknown to them and the women who started this trend, they were ruining this honorable Japanese tradition by exploiting it. The training of a geisha begins at a young age, usually around 6 years old, sometimes as early as 4 or 5, and they continue till the age of 20 or 21. Unlike other girls trained in home management, geisha were taught politics, literature, art, and poetry. They were brilliant women and witty conversationalists who could converse with men on almost any topic, an essential aspect of their profession. A geisha in training is called a maiko, which generally means woman of dance. She has a mentor or older sister in the trade called One-san. During training, the maiko not only had to master various performing arts, but they also learned calligraphy, ikebana, flower arranging, and how to engage clients in captivating conversations. They also had to learn how to walk and move gracefully, so they could, for example, serve drinks delicately without getting the sleeves of their kimono wet. Geisha could not get married, as one of the most sacred rules of the profession was to be married to art. So, they had to devote all their time and energy to the profession. If they wanted to get married, they had to retire. Once a geisha has quit their job, it's usually challenging to return to the scene. But if they wished to, they could debut in a different city under another name. All in all, money was not a problem for the geisha. It was one of the few jobs a Japanese woman could do during the Edo period and World War II that would guarantee her freedom and choices. After paying all their fees and dues to the ochaya where they worked, the rest of the income would be theirs. Geisha were also free to choose how they received their customers. From the intense training it took to become a geisha, to their incredible talents, to the expensive clothing, jewelry, and makeup they wore, it's not surprising that they were one of the most exclusive members of society. To meet, talk, or even drink with a maiko or geiko, you had to be ready to pay through the nose for the attention. And even at that, you had to know someone who knew someone. Most geisha worked only at licensed ochaya, also known as tea houses, in geisha districts. They were usually veiled behind plain wooden doors, bearing discreet signs that most passersby would miss. The ochaya were responsible for ensuring that the geisha working with them remained safe as they arrived for their appointments, wearing millions of dollars of clothing and accessories. So, they ensured only VIP clients had access to their performances. These clients not only had to maintain costly memberships and follow strict membership rules, but also a potential new member could only join if a current member agreed to act as their guarantor. For the regular people, the only chance of seeing a geisha was a quick glimpse of her as she alighted a taxi and immediately entered the ochaya. The unspoken code of secrecy among the geisha was so strong that they risked losing friends, income, and respect by talking about their profession to an outsider. They took their exclusivity seriously. Ask Minako Iwasaki. Before Minako suddenly retired at 29, she was the most famous geiko in Japan. Minako was one of the geisha Arthur Golden interviewed while working on his book, Memoirs of a Geisha. She only agreed to the interview on the condition that he would not use her name in the book or mention her name in relation to the book. By the time the book got published, he had included her name in the acknowledgments and then mentioned her name repeatedly during interviews. You could always identify the rank of different geisha based on how they dressed and the type of makeup they used. The younger Maiko wore more formal attire while working, comprised of long-sleeve kimonos called furisode, a formal obi, and a traditional hairstyle. The Maiko's kimono had a red collar, which they upgraded to a white one when they became geikos. Maikos also wore 6-inch wooden sandals called a kubo, which when combined with the heavy kimonos and makeup made movement quite challenging. But that explains why they must undergo so much training, right? The geiko, on the other hand, could wear short-sleeve kimonos and have an overall less formal appearance. While the Maiko wore makeup that accented their youthful facial features, like rounder eyebrows and softer pink blush, the geiko wore sharper makeup and could sometimes do without makeup entirely. The geisha were costumed in costly fabric regardless of their rank, with intricately woven patterns that created a stunning contrast to the kimono regular women wore. Their makeup and hair often took hours of several people working on them. Sometimes they would sit on a wooden stool for hours to not smear the makeup, which was a heavy white powder and red lipstick. The geisha wore such striking makeup deliberately to stand out in a room where the only available lighting was often candles. They also looked much more pleasing to the eye than the traditional married women. Those women practiced ohaguro, blackening the teeth, whitening the skin, and replacing natural eyebrows with paint. Although geishas are becoming less and less famous, it's important to remember that once upon a time, this was one of the few professions that could give women autonomy and independence. So if you enjoyed this video, give it a like and let us know in the comments what you think about the complicated lives of the geisha. If you were a woman in 19th century Japan, would you consider becoming a geisha? We'd love to hear your thoughts. Also, don't forget to subscribe to this channel and turn on all notifications so you're the first to know when a new video drops.